Airport officials released the 15,000-page contract for the $1.8 billion with a B dollar renovation of DIA's terminal this week. Meanwhile, a recent auditor's report indicated a failure to thoroughly review technical standards for airfield projects, which led to significant deterioration of new runway pavements, costing DIA close to $3 million. David, usually when we see the whole public-private partnership, that seems to be a nice combination here. But $1.8 billion is a lot of money, and although it's a smaller example, can DIA be trusted to manage a project of this magnitude?
Of course not.
I guess it was a softball.
You can go back to the construction of DIA and remember the automated baggage system that was going to be so wonderful and, in fact, never, ever worked. They can't even pave their runways properly, and now they want $1.8 billion. The Denver Business Journal has a good, they put up the promotional video for, from DIA for what it would look like after this. And so theoretically, there's going to be some improvements in the speed of security screening, and that's fine, and that's a legitimate thing. But I think most of the money for this hugely, insanely expensive reconfiguration is they're going to make level 5 into this shopping mall. And an airport is not for the purpose of shopping. You don't go to the airport and go through screening so you can go to the mall. There's plenty of shopping already on the concourses and already at DIA, and I think it is foolish to think that there's going to be some big more additional economic activities. Oh, let's go to the airport 4 hours early because then we can go through security and we can spend a couple hours enjoying this great new mall and having a shopping experience. Fortunately, Kevin Flynn, formerly of this show, is on the city council. He's definitely a big government guy who likes spending money on transportation, but he's also thoughtful and well-informed, and I'm really glad he's going to be there to review and analyze the details of this proposal.
Eric, we heard this from airport officials, and I guess my question here is, you have airport officials, are they really truly independent of the city? And I guess where it would matter is, if this does go a little off track, does the city government and its leadership, namely right now Mayor Hancock, end up paying that price? Or is the airport separate enough where people can blame it and its officials if there's a problem?
Well, ask Wellington Webb about that when the airport didn't get open and meet its timetable. No, the political leadership ultimately pays the price. I'm not necessarily opposed to public-private partnerships, but I think the amount of vetting they require, the bar to clear is a very high bar. I do worry that we get into this pattern where we privatize the upside. So the private company gets a lot of the upside benefit, but the public bears much of the risk. We talk about the $3 billion number. And yes, this company, for Ferrovial, or if I'm pronouncing it correctly, is going to put in a bunch of cash. But as I understand it, most of the first $600 million is public money. The initial injection is public money. David is dead on the mark, dead right, in terms of what the purpose of this is, and retail is driving this show. I look around that airport, and yes, there's room for improvement, and it is now, what, 22 years old, something like that. You need to keep it current and keep it modernized. But it looks pretty, it's still got a little sparkle to me. It functions reasonably well. Yes, security needs to go better. Maybe security's not in the ideal location. But I don't know that it requires $3 billion, and I don't think Denver really needs, I mean, David said it better than I'm saying it. I don't know that we need another shopping experience when people just want to get through the airport and catch a flight.
John, people hear $1.8 billion. A, that's a lot of money. And B, it's just the terminal. I mean, we're not talking about the entire airport or building something brand new. It's just the terminal. And this is before we may even hear about needing to grow or adapt the concourses, which just really think where the rubber hits the road if you're going to do it that way. What do you think about the project that we've seen so far?
Well, you got to understand the airport is an enterprise zone with the city, so that the money that they generate out there doesn't go back to the general fund. So they are a little fiefdom of sorts unto themselves out there. I don't know if you saw the spot when they just announced the Paris flights direct from DIA, and so the mayor and Kim Day sitting there acting like they just got this wire, this Western Union, from Paris, saying the flights are going to start. This is all a situation out there where if Norm Early was still running for, in politics these days, I don't know if you remember when Norm Early started, he had a 43 share against Webb. And then this is when the airport was still in its planning stages, and they came up with an acronym DIA. And all of a sudden, they asked early about DIA, and he said, "Oh, DOA? I think it's dead on arrival." And his numbers went from 43 down to about 3, and that's when Webb ended up winning. I think there has to be eyes on the airport, but at the same time, if this money will help make flying safer, if it will make pilots safer in the air and landing, if it will give the air traffic controllers who the president wants to privatize, if it will give them more tools to make it safe, then I say let's go for it.
I can't imagine any of that going through the terminal, but who knows? Patty, 15,000 pages in the contract. Besides David, who's going to read this thing?
Kevin Flynn, I hope. And that's one of the great things about having him there. It's about as much time as you get to read yet another iteration of the healthcare bill. So you hope they take their time at City Council. You hope they don't find a little secret thing like, automated baggage system, which United was so hot on and which still haunts the bowels of DIA. Some of this I toured, and some of the things make some sense. I mean, the security I didn't understand till I walked through and saw where they were thinking about moving security. That makes sense because the security is a nightmare now. Even when it runs smoothly, you flee to your gate because you don't want to go through it. I think you would have plenty of time to go down and shop, and maybe those pilots will be able to buy Starbucks, which I guess is going to be a DIA too, so they'll at least stay awake during their flight, and that will be safer. But there's a lot going on in this plan, and if anything goes wrong, it will be the mayor and the city council who are ultimately responsible for this contract. It is not just DIA.